This episode is sponsored by The Home Depot. The Home Depot has all of the top quality products and ideas to help you upgrade your outdoor space. For me, that's a new Traeger smoker so I can have a sweet cooking space in the backyard, and I can cook the subject of today's episode, homemade bacon.
It smells good.
Get started on your outdoor project with The Home Depot and check out the link in the video description. Now let's get down to basics. Alright, so you can make bacon out of all kinds of different things, but the stuff that you're probably most familiar with is made from pork belly. Its ultra-high fat content makes it an ideal candidate for surviving the trauma of curing, smoking, and frying. Now, you can do a big old piece of belly like this, but cutting it into 3 pieces is not only going to let us cure it 3 different ways, it's also going to cure faster. Check out the curing calculator over at AmazingRibs.com, which can calculate the exact concentration of curing salt that you'll need as well as brine time, based on factors like your pork's weight, height, and girth. So as you can see, I'm meticulously weighing out and measuring all my pieces so I can safely and effectively cure them. Once you've done all your maths, we're going to place our pork in some leak-proof zip-top bags, use a very precise scale to measure out our pink curing salt, also known as Prague powder number 1, which contains sodium nitrite, something toxic to humans in large quantities, but perfectly safe when precisely measured and added to a brine. Speaking of which, as I mentioned, we're curing this bacon 3 ways. All my pieces weigh about 2 pounds and are about 1.5 inches thick at their thickest point. So into a small bowl, I am combining 1/2 cup of distilled water, 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of kosher salt, and 2.1 grams of Prague powder number 1. Once again, consult the curing calculator at AmazingRibs.com to determine your exact water to curing salt ratio. We're pouring that into our zip-top bag, zipping its top shut, and hugging it close to our breast to squeeze out any excess air as we zip it shut, ensuring that the pork is evenly exposed to the curing liquid. The curing calculator then demands that this pork cures in the fridge for 3 days. Next up, we're going to try making a bacon that I'm particularly excited about, a pastrami bacon. Same 1/2 cup of distilled water, combined with 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon whole black peppercorns, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of yellow mustard seeds, 1 tablespoon kosher salt, 1 teaspoon whole allspice berries, 1 teaspoon whole juniper berries, 1 1/2 teaspoons of paprika, 1 tablespoon of whole coriander seeds, many spirited twists of freshly ground black pepper. Give everybody a mix to combine, and of course we can't forget our curing salt, in this case 2.2 grams for my 796 grams of pork, and last but not least, 2 crushed up dried bay leaves. Then same deal, this guy's getting poured into the bag along with the pork belly, getting all of the air lovingly squeezed out of the bag and getting mushed around a little bit to ensure even distribution. Last but not least, a bacon cured with guanciale flavors. Guanciale is traditionally made with pork jowl, but this is going to make for a delicious bacon that is purpose-built for carbonara. 1/2 cup distilled water, 1 tablespoon kosher salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon dried rosemary, 1 teaspoon dried thyme, 1 teaspoon whole allspice berries. For my 623-gram piece of pork, 1.8 grams of pink curing salt, and 1.5 tablespoons whole black peppercorns that we're going to briefly crush up in a spice grinder. Plus, we're also going to crush in 1 large clove of fresh garlic. Tiny whisk to get all the garlic off, and then to combine. And just like the rest, we're pouring it into the bag, squeezing out all the air, and making sure that the cure is evenly distributed around the meats before we place everything on a rimmed baking sheet and fridge for the specified amount of time, in my case 3 days. Every 12 hours or so, we're going to pull them out and give them a massage and a flip, making sure that every inch of our belly is getting enough exposure to the cure. Once again, depending on the size and shape of your pork, this could take anywhere from 1 day to 2 weeks. So for both maximum deliciousness and your safety, make sure to follow the calculator. Once the cure is complete, we're going to rinse these guys and pat them dry before placing them on a wire rack and fridging them one last time for 12 hours. Then we're taking them out of the fridge for about half an hour before finally smoking. So we're headed out to the Traeger, where I'm going to insert a temperature probe into the thickest part of the pork, plop it on the grate, and smoke at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for anywhere from 2 to 3 hours until the belly registers 150 degrees internally, after which time our belly should emerge beautifully burnished and brown, smelling like the smoky beard of the Norse god of pork. Then these guys need to cool to room temperature, and then we need to fridge them once again overnight, maybe even toss them into the freezer for 15 to 20 minutes so that they firm up and are ready to slice. Once we've sliced off the exterior crust with a very sharp knife, we can begin slicing in earnest into extra thick beautiful slabs of homemade bacon. And there you have it, folks. It might be a little labor intensive and time consuming, but it is the best bacon that you will ever taste. And you have complete control over the flavors. The pastrami bacon is one of the most incredible things I've ever put in my mouth. As you can imagine, slicing by hand is a little labor intensive, so if you're lucky enough to own a deli slicer, now's the time to bust it out. Once you got your bacon all sliced up, it's ready to cook, just like normal bacon. But you remember that crust that we sliced off earlier? Don't throw that away. This can be cut into bite-sized chunks, and as I mentioned before, it is absolutely perfect for carbonara, or any application you can imagine that might need extra smoky bacon bits. But the first thing I wanted to make when this stuff emerged triumphantly from the smoker was a BLT, the most important element of which, apart from the bacon of course, is the T, or the tomato. You want ultra big, ultra red, ultra ripe, juicy joints like these guys from my garden, which we're going to slice thinly using a nice sharp knife, and I like to salt them beforehand. This helps draw out their moisture and makes them even juicier when it comes time to eat them. Next up, the mayo, which you generally don't think of first when you think of BLT, but it's just as important. As such, we're going to want to make our own. So into an immersion blender cup, we're going to crack 2 large eggs, scoop in 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard, add 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, squeeze the juice of 1 whole lemon, and crush the garlic of 2 cloves of garlic. Then we're plopping in the head of the immersion blender and blending for a few seconds until everything is evenly combined, then slowly and carefully streaming 2 cups of a neutral oil like vegetable oil or canola down the side of the cup so it settles on top of the eggs. Then we're immersion blending on high speed while moving the head of the blender up and down until the eggs emulsify with the oil into a rich and creamy mayo, one that stands head and shoulders above anything you'll ever get out of a jar. Then we're going to bake our bacon at 375 Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes until crisp. This not only produces nice, flat, evenly cooked bacon, but also some absolutely gorgeous rendered bacon fat, which you should always have in your fridge at the ready, and this is an excellent way to harvest it. It's also an excellent way to add more bacon flavor to our BLT by generously brushing it on one side of our 2 slices of hearty white bread and toasting them brushed side down in a heavy cast iron skillet, then allowing to cool on a wire rack before assembly. Now I like to put together my sandwich with the toasted side facing inward. This gives you all the crunch and flavor while preventing bread sogginess and sparing the roof of your mouth. So we're going to generously slather our homemade mayo on both sides of the sandwich, pile it high with iceberg lettuce or the artisanal lettuce of your choice, stack several slices of tomato on top, and finish the whole thing off with a Lincoln log house of bacon, the best way to ensure uniform distribution and structural integrity. Top it up, squish it down a little bit, install 2 toothpicks both for decoration and stability, slice in half on the diagonal, and of course inspect the cross-section. As you can see, every bite should contain proportionally correct amounts of lettuce, homemade mayo, homemade bacon, and vine-grown tomatoes, which you might notice are extra juicy thanks in large part to the pre-salting. It's the absolute ultimate BLT, and sure, it takes a few days to make your own bacon, but it is totally worth it. And it was made possible by this week's sponsor, the Home Depot. The Home Depot has everything you need to get your outdoor space set up for this next season. I was able to get this Traeger Ironwood 650 plus this big boy tomato plant from Bonnie Plants, so that I'll have tomatoes for BLTs with friends all summer long. If you've been waiting for a sign that you should freshen up your outdoor hanging space, this is it. Get your project started with the Home Depot at homedepot.com/outdooroasis. The link is in the description.